Has this ever happened to you? When you encounter a new word, one you've never really heard before, a new idea, and then there it is again, and there it is again. Oh, it's everywhere all of a sudden. It feels special. It feels important. More than likely, what's happening is the frequency illusion. And this is really common in spiritual practice and one of the biggest pitfalls for us when we are trying to listen to our guides, guardians, and gods. So today we're going to sit back and we're going to react to a video by Minute Earth that explains the frequency illusion and talk about how to discern in our own lives and practices the difference between the frequency illusion and spirit actually trying to communicate with us. So let's talk about that today as we walk together down Creation's path. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Today, we're going to be talking about the frequency illusion and how it really is the main reason people get off course in their spiritual practice, and also how societies get off course because the frequency illusion can be used in very insidious ways to bias people on certain things. Like, for a lot of people, how they'd never heard the word woke before it was turned into a bad word, or DEI until it was turned into a bad word. Yeah, this is used a lot to weaponize our own psychology against us. And Minute Earth just released a really good video about the frequency illusion. And so we're going to go through it and talk about this, especially in how it interrelates with our own spiritual practice. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever the app is you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss anything because we got a lot of cool stuff going on. We're currently in the middle of our Jedi and Druidry, series you all asked for, and there is going to be a lot of very interesting episodes yet to come in that. All right, let's just get into it now, shall we? I'm going to start by playing a little bit of this video from Minute Earth, and let's just really get into what is the frequency illusion and how it works.
This is a story about attention, memory, and headless goat hockey. Hi, I'm Cameron, and this is Minute Earth. But wait a minute, let's go for a second, which is a totally real sport played on horseback with a goat carcass standing in for a ball. It's known by many names throughout Central Asia, but I first encountered it as buzkashi. It's wild.
Okay, I wanted to stop here because I think this is number one, the quickest way the frequency illusion gets embedded into our brain. We hear about something that's like, no, really? And then when we see it pop up elsewhere, oh, wow, that really is a thing. Now, the thing that's brought up could be a thing that's actually happening, or it could be something that has always been happening and we just haven't noticed it. For example, if I were to tell you that there are jazz bands still very popular touring the country, and you only listen to popular music or some other style of music, that might make you go, wait, there's still jazz bands? Yes. And now, next time you hear jazz or the phrase jazz band, you're going to stop and go, there's jazz again. Because it's something that you don't expect in your regular, normal life, right? It's something that's just outside the ordinary. And it can be something as regular and mundane as that. Like, I knew somebody once who ate spaghetti with a spoon. Weird things lodge in your brain, and your brain goes, is that a thing? And we'll start looking for it because that's out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the number of times we would have a wine that's been in the shop for a year. And so I would just move it on the shelves, move the shelves around a little bit, move their placement, and move it to a different location. Then I would have a week solid of people coming up to me going, wow, this is a new wine you got in. This is amazing. And it's the same wine that's been sitting in the shop for a year. It's just because it was in a new location, it just suddenly just stood out in their brains.
And this technique is used to sell you everything from movie tickets to video games to music. There's a reason popular songs are played in the background of some YouTube videos and TikToks, because it gets it into your mind. And then through Another effect, which we're not going to be talking about today, the mere exposure effect. When you hear something enough, you will tend to like it. So if you don't know a certain movie's coming out and, oh, there's a banner ad for it here, there's a banner ad for it there, oh, there's a trailer in the commercial before this video, then you happen to notice, oh, that movie's playing at the local theater. It's everywhere. Maybe I should go see it. This frequency illusion is a marketer's dream. It is one of the two tools that marketers always use to get people to get interested in your products. When I was studying marketing, the one thing I was told was you need to get somebody to see your brand 7 to 12 times before they will notice it. And at that point, they will start listening. And then after so many exposures and listening, they'll start hearing what you're saying. So the point was to get the brand everywhere so that people would notice it and start noticing that they were noticing. That's this effect.
Yeah, this effect we also see working a lot, like in the United States. Politicians and various more nefarious groups will use this effect to get the public to believe a false thing is true. They'll just have it repeated. It's the echo chamber. They'll have it repeated over and over again from multiple sources and that a person will experience randomly throughout their day from all these different places. And then next thing you know, they just suddenly go, wow, this is real.
Or a true thing that you just didn't notice because you hadn't heard it just right. Like how the word the 1% came apparently out of nowhere. But if you had been involved in those kind of anti-corporatist protest movements for a long time, that was a phrase that had just been in the vocabulary for a long time. It took something to bring it to mass attention for people to suddenly realize it's everywhere. And it is something that can be weaponized for good or for evil. Before we dig in too much further, let's go back and find out, what is this frequency illusion?
I swear it's relevant. I first learned about Buzkashi in a book about mountain climbing. I was intrigued by the existence of this macabre folk sport, but I basically tucked it away in the trivia-laden file cabinet of my brain. Fast forward a week or so, when I'm reading a totally unrelated magazine article about Afghanistan, and there it was again, Buzkashi. What are the odds that I would encounter another mention of this obscure thing so soon after learning about it? It's not like I was seeking it out, and at least from what I can find, Buzkashi wasn't actually experiencing a surge of popularity. But to me, it seemed to be popping up everywhere. You've probably experienced the same thing. Not with Buzkashi, of course, but with some other obscure term or concept that you've never heard before, and then suddenly you notice it popping up all over the place in a way that feels almost spooky. This feeling is common enough that it has a name, the frequency illusion. It also shares a name with a German terrorist group because of somebody's experience learning about the group and then encountering it again and again in quick succession. Scientists don't understand the exact mechanism behind this illusion, but they do have some ideas about why it happens, based on what we know about how our brains work. You know, the usual suspects. Think about all of the noise you're exposed to at any given time. Your brain is constantly flagging important information out of that and filtering the rest. When it comes to new information, your brain basically has to guess whether something is potentially important or not, based on all sorts of clues, and stuff that it guesses might be worth holding on to get filed into your memory. It'll often take us a while to stumble back across that same information, but every so often it pops up again in quick succession. And since patterns can be important, I mean, heck, our brains probably evolved to notice patterns to help us avoid the poison berries or whatever. Our pattern-seeking brains take notice and think this thing must be everywhere. But most of the time, especially in our modern noise-packed lives, the second exposure is just a coincidence. And what really made all this click for me was when I recently came across Buzkashi.
Okay, so this is what the frequency illusion is. We've noticed something, we file it away. Oh, wait, there it is again. Oh, wait, there it is again. And it's something that is not as uncommon as we previously thought it to be because we had not taken notice of it before, and suddenly it's everywhere. A really good example of this is pronouns. Nobody thought about pronouns until people started making a big deal about them because they wanted to shut down people that don't use the pronouns that they wanted them to use. But we do this all the time, unconsciously. Oh, that's such a beautiful dog. He. Oh, he's such a beautiful dog, right? Because we don't always know the gender of a pet when we first see it. We don't often know the gender of a child when we first see it. And so we sometimes have to be corrected there. This was a regular, normal part of our society until somebody pointed out, did you know that there are people that don't use the pronouns that you want them to? and it got weaponized against them. And suddenly it's a big deal. Now, in spirituality, this is dangerous. And not dangerous as in like fire and brimstone preacher, you could burn in hell for all eternity dangerous. Dangerous as in you can wander off your path and get lost in the woods and have to do a lot of work to get back to where you need to be if you accidentally fall for this illusion.
So I like to say you end up chasing a will-o-wisp.
Yes.
It's dangerous.
Oh yeah, it really is. What am I talking about here? I'm somebody who works with the Morrigan, and I have had a relationship with the Morrigan for much longer than I actually have with Bridget. I first had my first experiences with the Morrigan when I was in high school. I didn't quite understand what they were. Started hanging out with some Celtic pagans. They explained what was going on. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And that's kind of when my relationship with the Morrigan started. But sometimes a blackbird is just a blackbird. I've noticed when I talk to people about my experience with the Morrigan, especially when I am, if you will, on a mission for her, because that tends to be how she works with me, is here's a task that needs to be accomplished, and I will be chaperoned and overseen by corvids during that process. So a couple of years ago, I had a very specific mission from the Morrigan. I was out about doing it. Everywhere I went, I would look over at the windowsill and there would be one or more crows looking in the window, just watching. Every time I went outside, crows would not only land, but would walk up to me. And I understood what this was. This was just a subtle nudge. Remember to stay on task. You have traveled halfway across the country for a purpose, for a reason. Make sure that you're staying on point. Make sure you're staying on focus. And every time I got tired and was having a hard time continuing to have the energy I needed to stay on task, I would not only see the crows, but they would be cawing at me. They would not just randomly making sounds, mind you. They would land, look up at me, and just caw, 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 because the crows were trying to get my attention, because the Morrigan was trying to get my attention. I had started wavering from the task that I was there to do. I needed to refocus, re-energize, and get back on task. Now, when I explained this to some people, they started noticing all of these crows around. And so they started having this, maybe the Morrigan is talking to me too. Sometimes a crow is just a crow. Were those crows interested in you at all? Were they paying attention to you at all? I remember we were at a park during one of these events. I was feeling really bad. I was trying to relax. And a crow came over and just started gifting things to me. Little rocks, pebbles, just randomly would come up to me. Everybody else is doing their thing. I got the message. It was very clear. I'm here to bring you some restoration. I'm here to bring you some strength. And I sat and meditated with the crow for a while and got my energy back. That crow was part of the message that I was having. Somebody who was at that same park with me said to me later, I noticed crows all around and I felt like maybe they were speaking to me too. And so I'd have to ask them, how did the crow interact with you? Did the crow show interest to you? Were there any connections between you and it, or did you happen to be maintaining the same space? And that's where we weed our way out of the frequency illusion. I live in an area where there are a lot of starlings. There are a lot of crows. We have a mated pair of crows that live in the trees not far from our house. And so I see crows every time I go outside. Every time. Every time I see those crows, that is not a message from the Morrigan. I'm always mindful of them, because if all of a sudden they're landing on the roof and trying to talk to me, I might need to go journey and have a conversation, right? This may be a summons, but it's not necessary. Usually a blackbird is just a blackbird. Do you understand what I'm saying? That making sense?
Yeah, that's where that extra level of discernment really comes in handy, because like on that one journey you were talking about earlier, I was there with you and I noticed the abnormal frequency of crows, and that's nice. But once again, correlation is not causation. So I knew in my head, okay, that's a sign, but I may not be reading the sign correctly. I started watching and being more attentive, and I noticed, yeah, they were all focused on Charlie. Their entire attention was Charlie, not me. Like, even though I'm right, oftentimes just within a foot or two of Charlie, they weren't focused on me. I would even do things where I would sometimes take a step away and watch the crow as I moved. They didn't track my movement. They didn't care about me. And so I knew right away, I was like, okay. And that's also when I mentioned to Charlie, hey, you probably already noticed this, but you have the...
Yeah, you did.
Sometimes they were following us while we were driving, like literally going from place to place even. That's the other thing. Had the other party member done some simple tests to follow up, they would have noticed that, yes, there were a lot of crows because they were specifically, their attention and focus and interaction was specifically Charlotte. And they really didn't care about the rest of us other than any more than any other person randomly running into a crow at any other point in time.
And that's the danger of dealing with this kind of sign seeking. This is why we are encouraged not to seek omens, because if you seek them, you will find them. You can convince yourself that anything is an omen, and why discernment is so important. One of the ways I know that Angus is talking to me or trying to get my attention is there is a rare golden bird that lives around here. I think it's a kind of finch, but I'm terrible with bird names. I think it's a kind of finch, but it is very golden. It is very yellow. It really stands out compared to all of the other birds around here. Now, it is native to the area, but they're not very common, and they usually are out in the woods. They're not near houses. And in periods when Angus is trying to get my attention, those birds will be prevalent. They will be on the windowsill when I go into the kitchen, and they will be just looking in, paying attention to what's going on inside the house. When I go outside, they'll be out there. They'll be singing, and I never hear them because, again, they're usually further out into the woods away from human habitation. So I am always conscious of the fact that this could just be me assuming, but usually when I see them, I know, oh, Angus has a task, or Angus is trying to get my attention for something. Let's look into this. Let's see what this is. And then you go into a further discernment process, right? When I met Bridget, I was not looking for her. I had no interest in taking on a patron of any kind. I was not interested in working with anybody else at that point in time. I just started having dreams of fire. And if you want to see the full story is over on my website, was Cry. I think it's called My Encounter with Bridget, but you can find it there and read the full story if you want to, because I actually put it up over there. But I was worried that it was a frequency illusion, because when I saw the fire, I woke up and my first thought was Bridget. And so I was very mindful of, am I seeing Bridget everywhere? Did I set myself up for perceiving this frequency illusion? And I was not watching a lot of Irish themed videos at the time. So no, I wasn't hearing this name a lot. I was not experiencing the name nearly at all. It was just in my dreams. It was just there. That made it seem a little bit more special and a little bit more interesting to me as I was trying to discern what was happening here. And this was really the first task I ever did with and for Bridget, was basically what that led to. I designed a meditation deck, an oracle card deck with her. And going through that experience, I was very mindful. I had long conversations with Brian and a couple of our other friends about this of, have you brought up Bridget lately? Have we been talking about her? Has she been in conversation at all? Because I was concerned that I had picked up on her name somewhere and was superimposing it on the experience I was having. That level of skepticism is very helpful in trying to figure out exactly what it is that you are being called for. For example, I started noticing a lot of signs that I related to the dog death. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I started experiencing a lot of things that was like, I've heard that when one of the two shows up, the others show up too. I guess the dog does here now too. But it felt very impersonal to me. And the more I discerned, I was like, wait a minute, Brian, is the dog trying to get your attention? And you rolled your eyes and you were like, yes, he is.
I've been ignoring him for weeks. Well, the two started showing up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get drafted by one of them or something. I don't know. At that point in time, I really wasn't feeling it and wanting to mess with anything. And Dogda kept showing up, trying to get my attention. And sometimes I was just being oblivious, and sometimes I was playing oblivious, busy wrestling with other things. And yeah, when Charlie turned to me and asked, and I was just like, oh, yeah. It's just one of those things where further discernment is so important. I used to run into this a lot back in the day, a long time ago, when I used to do a lot of ghost hunting and monster hunting. You run into that where sometimes people that I would in the group with me, they would have this mindset going into it, this intention of seeking an experience rather than seeking understanding. And it even took me a while to realize and learn through experience, set your intentions to have understanding, that you're questing for understanding. You're not questing for an experience of a ghost kind of thing, because they would go into the environment and have a reaction to the environment that was more that of what they brought into it being reflected back at them, rather than anything actually being there in the space.
Yeah, I was around for some of those, and it was those moments where every shadow of a tree branch was a ghostly hand reaching out for them. Like, it really was like that kind of kid cartoon version of I'm having a ghost experience. And like, they didn't have a debunking mindset where anytime you go into any spiritual experience, I feel like a certain amount of healthy skepticism is very important, so we don't trundle off into error.
They're funny sometimes, and especially the ones where they're like, the first thing out of their mouth is, oh, this space is being haunted by Satan. And it's like, wait, so Satan personally is taking interest in this one individual in this one space right now. And it's like, there's no further discernment or verification going into this process. And it's sure, there may be a malevolent entity in that space, and of course, they're going to take on whatever title is going to resonate with the individuals there most, just to get a reaction. Talk to any internet troll. If you respond mostly to name A, they're going to use name A just to go that reaction out of you. But that doesn't mean that they are that thing. And further discernment would probably rule out a lot of those cases, because their lack of connection to power on large scale.
Because I think this is the number one way people go wrong when they are operating in any kind of a spiritual field. If you hear somebody talk about topic A, and then you start seeing that everywhere in your life, even when you're not. You're just noticing things that you can correlate to that, or you think it's special because now you're noticing it when it was there the whole time, and you think it's new, that it's just starting, or that it makes you somehow special that it's happening for you. And the one thing that I've noticed with all of the people that I feel actually are working with the spirits is we all tend to have this, it's a job mentality. There's nothing special about me. That is why I work for and with the Morgan and Bridget. There's nothing special about me. I am not special. I am not a chosen one. It's a job. I've somehow lucked into it. Yeah, that's the nicest way to say it. I lucked into it and got the job. I was the one who said yes when the invitation went out. And so I now have the job. It's not something special. It does not make someone elite to work with a particular spirit. And I've noticed people that really do work with the spirits tend to have that kind of relationship with them where they realize this doesn't make me a special person. And I think too many people come to magical work and spiritual work wanting to feel special, because they're trying to escape the kind of soul-crushing isolation of late-stage capitalism, that they really want to feel, oh, this spirit is reaching out to me, this spirit is calling me, therefore I am the chosen one, I am the special one, I am somehow special because of this. And I don't want you to be depressed. I'm not trying to say no one is special. Let's be honest, like the cliche is true. We're all special snowflakes, and we're all unique in our own way. Yeah, But it's
out of the words of the pessimist, folks. I was going to say it as the optimist, but Charlie said it for me. We're all uniquely special.
We're all unique in
just
some
a matter of recognizing.
But we, in this desire to feel special, we tend to make things bigger than they need to be. And this is where we need to really check our own emotions going into any practice where we feel like we are receiving messages, whether that's signs, omens, whether that's direct communication through meditation or journeying, whatever it happens to be. We really need to check our ego on the side and realize that if we are receiving a message, it's not because we are the special chosen one. It's because we may be in the right place. We may have the ear of some of the right people. That may be why we have been drawn to a particular task, but that's, again, a happenstance kind of a thing. But when we let our ego get involved, it's really easy for us to get off the track and either inflate our ego beyond anything that it deserves to be and thinking that we're so great because of this experience, or completely blinding ourselves and pretending an experience is happening when it isn't, when it's just the frequency bias. When it's just you hear me talk about Bridget or the Morrigan or Angus, or you hear Brian talk about the Dagda, and you start seeing the signs, or you start seeing these names maybe appearing everywhere where they may have been there the whole time, you just didn't know. And learning to have that kind of initial skepticism is really important for our own mental health, as well as for our own journey. Because there are times when I thought, oh, the Morgan is here again. And no, they were just a whole bunch of juvenile crows trying to run off the mated pair that were in the area. And they were having a thing. And I was too in my own ego and thought that all of this Corvid activity was related to me when it really wasn't. You just go, oh, okay, I was wrong about that. And you go on with your life. I think the best way to say it might be always bearing in mind that you might be wrong and always looking for clarification. Because anytime I felt a call from the Morgan and I did some journeying and I found out, oh, this is the thing that I am supposed to be working on, I have seen results from that thing. Because if she has a task, it's because in some way, shape, or form, I will be able to accomplish that task. And so they may not be grand, they may not be huge, right? But I will see a result from that thing that I did that will outperform what I would have done if I had not had that aid. If that makes sense. I can see the supernatural presence in the outcome and in the doing. And that's how I know, oh yeah, that must have been a thing that I was called to do. Like when I really felt that Bridget was wanting us to bring this podcast back and to do this work and to do it daily and to do it to both of us, that seemed impossible. And we're just couple months away from our 1-year anniversary of doing this, the two of us. And I'm really energized about doing it. I'm still excited about doing it. This isn't the first time I've tried to do a podcast like this, but this is the first time an audience has coalesced around it. This is the first time I have seen the growth that we're seeing from this, that we've gotten the amazing support that you all are giving to us, both financially and just through your kind words. And so I can see these results that I did not have other times, where either I was jumping the gun or I just wasn't ready to actually do it. There's a follow through that is beyond what I know that I was capable of doing, just myself. And I find that interesting because we're both metrics minded people. And so we're very watching how each episode is doing and everything, trying to read the tea leaves of what the audience is actually interested in. Because sometimes y'all are vocal and sometimes you aren't. And we'll see an episode and be like, I guess nobody liked that. I guess only 6 listens in the first day. And then we come back later and it's, oh, that exploded. Okay. It wasn't time for that episode to find its audience yet. And we've had episodes that we thought, I guess nobody was interested in that. And then like months later, bam, they shot up and became our number 1 episode for a while, even though they were months old. And so that's the kind of patience and forethought I'm talking about bringing to this, getting past this need for immediate gratification. Because I think some people think, oh, I think I'm getting a message from this spirit. I journeyed and they weren't there. Well, that might not be the means that they want to communicate with you. Have you looked into their lore? Have you looked into how they tend to work with people? Because you should meet them on their terms. They're probably not going to meet you on yours. Or maybe, yeah, you were mistaken. There have been several spirits in my life that I thought I had received messages for, and no, I was wrong. And so learning to discern this frequency illusion from actually receiving signs will help you out immensely. And at some point, we're going to have to do an episode on the mere exposure effect. It's related to this, but it's different.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. I hope that this episode was helpful for you. I hope that you can see what we're talking about here. I tried to give a lot of personal experiences from my own life to try to make it as easily seen as possible. Don't think that all of your experiences are going to be like mine. That's the other place where we fall in this work. I am very easily distracted. So having a bird land and start making noises at me draws my attention. So that might be how Morgan knows to get my attention. That might not be how she works with you. So always be mindful that your experiences will be your own, but Also be mindful of how easy it is for our own brains to trick us into thinking things are more important than they actually are. Because I know when people first start looking for signs, it inevitably happens that they start seeing them everywhere. And that's just a Tuesday. It's every Tuesday. It's if you're noticing a correlation with Tuesday, it's not as special as we think it is. I would love to know your experience with this. Have you heard of the frequency illusion before? Have you experienced a frequency illusion before? And if you have any tips or tricks that you use to help to distinguish between the frequency illusion and something actually trying to reach out and get your attention, do let us know in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, or CreationsPaths.com, you can leave a message right there and we'll be able to see it and get back to you. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say that you can leave a comment, they don't let us know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a message there and we will see it and we will be able to get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am C.E. Dorset on both. And you can also support us via the Cash App hashtag CreationsPaths. Thank you to everybody who does that. It really means the world to us. Helps us keep the lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. If you don't have any money right now, or you don't know that we're the kind of people you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's perfectly all right. But if we've ever said anything that's helped you out, please share that with others. That helps us out more than you possibly know. Alrighty. And as we're heading out today, since I have said her name so many times, oh Morrigan, spectral queen, goddess of prophecy, battle, and war, goddess of sovereignty, who teaches us to live in the truth of our own lives as well as honoring the truth of others' sovereignty. Help us and guide us to see the signs that we are to see and to walk the paths that we are to walk as we ever move forward in this life. Amen.
Amen.